Today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, that Underdog Fantasy. Best ball on Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest way to play fantasy football. Just draft your team and that's it. No waivers, no trades, no weak start sit decisions. Underdog will automatically play your best players at each position every week. Sign up today with promo code RTM to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. You can sign up for as little as $10 to start drafting today. For today's episode, Dynasty buys and sells. We're about a month away from training camp kicking off, and I feel like this is a time where you can win your Dynasty League. We've got some of our hottest player takes right now in the Dynasty streets. So pretty simple. Who are we buying? Who are we selling? We do not know who our buys and sells are. So we are going to start off with our buys. Why don't we start positive, right? We got to start positive. So Keegan Thompson, who are you buying right now in Dynasty?
I have a couple guys for buys here, but I think the person I'd like to talk about, like probably the priority here, is Hollywood Brown, actually. So the case for Hollywood Brown and why it's a buy this year, especially, like if you're a contender or like you're almost done with a rebuild and you just need another piece to add to your wide receiver group, that's a good option every week. He's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year with no Hopkins. Target share is all the way there for him. They'll be in negative game scripts, so I think it's a good play for 2023. This is also a guy who's in a contract year, and he has 2 pretty high upside options for his outlook. He either gets to go to another team in 2024 with a much better situation with Arizona Cardinals, or he spends all of 2023 getting peppered with a ton of targets. Don't forget, last year, 3 weeks, he posted 20 plus points in a game in PPR and was almost a consistent week in, week out wide receiver 1. And then we could see that again in 2023, or in 2024, he's also going to be a part of a potential Caleb Williams rebuild in Arizona too. So if you're looking down the future line, I think Marquise Hollywood Brown has some pretty exciting options on his horizon, both with 2 scenarios playing out, whether he's a Cardinal or where he's at next year. And I think he gives you value in 2023 too.
You had me at Arizona Cardinals.
That's my case for Hollywood.
You had me at Arizona Cardinals.
I don't.
You do not have to sell Shaun there.
You lost me when he said he might not be on the Cardinals. That's where I was like, whoa. And then you said Caleb Williams, and you took me on a journey, my friend. I just thought of the garbage Arizona Cardinals force feeding Marquise Brown over the next 2 to 3 years. It sounded spectacular, especially in PPR formats. Aidan, what do you think? Are you buying Mr. Hollywood Brown?
I'm definitely buying him post DeAndre Hopkins' departure there. I think, 1, he's still incredibly young, and 2, I think the potential volume, not only this year, but going forward, is pretty promising. The Cardinals don't need to be good or relevant for Marquise Hollywood Brown to continue producing. As Keegan mentioned, the start that he began the season on last year before the injury was pretty awesome. Granted, it was with Kyler, but he was absolutely tearing it up, was probably on his way to being a top 10, top 20 wide receiver in PPR league. So again, I'm pretty excited about it. The quarterback play is definitely, a question mark in terms of when you're weighing whether you're going to buy or sell him. But I think there's more kind of pros than cons in terms of my little Venn diagram that I'm looking at, that I would be willing to risk it and buy Hollywood Brown. But again, this will always depend on what does your roster look like. But just general blanket statement, I'd be buying as well.
I like that.
I mean, heck, if Kyler comes back and plays part of the season too, like there's some fun upside there for the rest of 2023. But I think he's just a really good wide receiver, and he's pretty cheap too. And if I was looking at some different value charts today and thinking about what kind of package it would look like to get Marquise Hollywood Brown, I mean, he's probably valued like around a pick 109, like in the first round, or you could trade using like a 201 and like a 3rd round or something together to like get him, and who would you rather have, Hollywood Brown or like a questionable rookie that you're not sure of, like especially in that kind of middle rebuilding state? So I don't think he's that expensive to acquire either.
He is currently the wide receiver 34 on keep trade cut for Dynasty. So keep that top of mind. My only fear with Hollywood Brown, chronic foot issues. Never fun. He's broken that foot several times. So that's something to keep in mind when acquiring Hollywood Brown. Aidan, who are you buying right now in Dynasty?
So this is a guy that I honestly give a lot of crap to, but I actually am pretty high on him, both in Dynasty, redraft, best ball, pretty much any format right now. And it's Jared Goff, actually. So Jared Goff is coming off a pretty quietly awesome season, through for just shy of 4,500 yards and 29 touchdowns with a supporting cast that really wasn't all that great. Finished as QB 10 in 2022. And it's kind of like no one cares. You get him Laporta, ARSB is only going to get better. You've got Jameson Williams gone for a few games, but really not all that worried about it. You also toss in Gibbs there as a check down kind of lover that he is. I think this season and kind of his future in general bodes really well for your fantasy team. If this is your QB1 in fantasy on your dynasty team for your Superflex, I'm probably not head over heels. But pairing Jared Goff to, one of your elite QBs like a Mahomes or Josh Allen, I think puts you in an awesome position to really have two sturdy QBs every week. And on top of that, he's still only 28 years old. I know the running back position, like we kind of start getting to this age where it's like time to take them out back, like it's done for them. Whereas quarterbacks are going to play till they're 35 years plus. The Lions were already there was already rumors of Jared Goff being in talks about an extension this offseason. They had 2 first-round picks that they easily could have packaged together in some shape or form to move up in this QB class, and they didn't, which I think speaks volumes to what the organization believes in Jared Goff. And just going back to, Shaun, what you were saying as well here, using keep, trade, cut, when you look at the QBs that are in the general range that Jared Goff is, it's kind of a no-brainer. He is kind of in the same talks right now as Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, Trey Lance. Like, Jared Goff should not be near any of these guys. I'm picking him over those 3 guys 10 out of 10 times and not thinking twice about it. The cost to get him, going back to Keegan too, probably isn't all that great. It's maybe a late first, early second, plus some change, and maybe you're trading some players in between. But Jared Goff's a guy that I'm really high on. One last thing, he's a dome bro too, man. Those dome conditions are awesome. He gets to play Ford Field.
Dome
bro stand up. Yeah, between Ford Field, you get to go to Minnesota. He's playing 10 plus games in a dome every year. Jared Goff's a buy for me. It's, kind of under the radar, but I'm quietly joining his fan club here.
Wow. That's spectacular. You dropped a Dome Bro reference. You double Dome Bro correlation, talking about US Bank with Minnesota. Are there any more domes? Green Bay, no. And then no, Soldier Field. So Tiny Hands is going to struggle in those winter games out there. No denying that.
It's okay. It's all right. Oh, we'll deal with it.
Then Keegan, are you buying Dome Bro, Jared Goff?
Superflex, he's really interesting. This is, I think, to what Aidan said, I'd be buying if I had a Mahomes, Allen, or Hurts, and I didn't have a quarterback of like Tua, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins. Like if I was maybe in Kenny Pickett QB2 territory and like they're kind of after, I would for sure look into Jared Goff, buying him as long as the cost is right. I feel like you probably do because it's a quarterback, and especially Superflex, cost is inflated. So you'll have to bake that into your trade considerations. But I like Jared Goff for the next year and maybe at least 2 more years, especially if he stays with the Lions. So I could find a case to buy Jared Goff.
I think I'm in on Jared Goff as long as the cost is appropriate. I actually have another quarterback that I think I'd rather buy right now than Jared Goff that's in a similar price range. And I think it's time, fellas, that we put some respect on Daniel Jones's name. Mr. Danny.
Let's go. Let's go.
I think it's time that we put a little respect on a 25-year-old quarterback who just secured a multi-year extension with one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL after he put up a QB9 fantasy season last year with some of the worst receiver talent that I can remember since playing fantasy football. So I've got a question for you fellas. Can you guess who led the Giants in receptions in 2022?
Isaiah Hodgins.
No, I don't think he was there long enough. I'm going with Slayton.
Wait, is it Saquon? Is it Saquon?
It is Saquon.
Slayton.
Saquon led the team in receptions. Can you name the wide receiver who led the team in receptions in 2022?
It's not Slayton or Hodgins.
Sterling Shepard.
No, he got hurt.
Yeah, wait.
Sensei Punk, Richie James, 49er, former
James.
49er great, Richie James.
Like 50 receptions?
Yes.
Like 50?
He had 57, I think. Daniel Jones finished as the QB9. Again, he finishes the QB9 in fantasy last season, throwing to Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Daniel Bellinger, Lawrence Cager, David Sills, Marcus Johnson, Kenny Galladay. I put a fake name in there. Can you guys guess who the fake name was?
Who'd you say after Lawrence Cager?
Lawrence Cager's fake.
David Sills, Marcus Johnson, Kenny Galladay, Daniel Bellinger, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James.
Marcus Johnson, that's fake.
Yeah, Marcus Johnson's fake.
All real players. Those are all real players in the NFL. None of them are fake.
I already knew that one. Lawrence Cager.
That was a trick question.
The Giants now have added. The Giants have now added Darren Waller. Perennially injured, but yes, Darren Waller is a stud. He was still quite good last year when he played. Look, Paris Campbell, perennially injured. But guess what? This guy is really freaking good. He's a second-round pick, has absolute speed. It's never been talent with Paris Campbell. And they added Jalen Hyatt. Speed. They just went out and added speed to this offense. They still have Sterling Shepard. They still have Wan'Dale Robinson. It's kind of a weird offense, but they actually have wide receiver talent all along the field. Daniel Jones is going to look better in year 2 in Brian Dable's system. Brian Dable's going to trust him more. He's not playing anymore for a contract. He got the contract. Go buy Daniel Jones. He's 25 years old. And guess what? He's a Konami code quarterback. The guy is one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. His upside is tied to how he's going to throw the ball, and I think he's going to get so much better tossing the rock next season. So buy Daniel Jones. QB 16 in keep trade cut right now. QB 16. Go buy
Don't
him.
you think he's expensive? He's definitely more expensive than Jared Goff.
Because he's better than Jared Goff. Because the rushing upside.
If I'm buying Daniel Jones, you got to pay up for that for sure. You could probably go 1-for-1 on a mid first or like a 107 or 108 and get Daniel Jones, I think, if you wanted to do that. But you'd have to pay up for Daniel for sure.
Yeah. I definitely think he's kind of in that next tier above Jared Goff, but I'm still a fan of him. Like I think in terms of like your dynasty outlook, he's probably sitting there with like the Dak Prescotts. And at that point, it's a matter of what does your current roster look like? Who's available? But I love Daniel Jones' future outlook as well. Like you said, 25, 26 years old, second year in Dable's offense. He's only going to get better. The rushing revelation last year in that offense was awesome. He's really smart about when he runs. He doesn't take unnecessary hits. This is a guy that's going to play in New York for a while. He just got that big contract. So again, I potentially look at other quarterbacks in that tier, but I still like Daniel Jones nonetheless.
I'm going to take Daniel Jones over 29-year-old Dak Prescott, and I'm going to take him over Tua in his current brain injuries. And I think I'd take him over Kyler Murray right now, too. So that's where I'm at with Daniel Jones.
That was actually what was going to be my question to you, Shaun. Like, would you take him over, the Tua, the Kyler, the Dak? Because I think that's a tier, and that I think he's actually right outside of that tier, to be honest. If Tua is healthy and like if Tua never had a brain injury, like I think Tua over sure. Daniel Jones, especially with the players he's tied to already, skill talent wise. But yeah, Daniel Jones is like right outside of that range, kind of looking in on that, and he's definitely the cheapest of those three too. So
yep.
Quick marathon buys. All right, quick hitters before we get to the sells. I only have one buy. That's how into Danny Jones I'm in. But I should have added some more Dome Bros to the list. Give us two quickly, Keegan.
Treylon Burks, wide receiver 1, alpha in his offense. I think he's a lot cheaper than the other second-year guys. So I would definitely look into that if you have a person in your league that doesn't want to play with Burks anymore, or just was bummed with the first year. And then also Terry McLaurin. If you're about ready to contend, this is a 28-year-old who's had very inconsistent quarterback play and puts up stats every year that are really, really good. And people are going to be enamored with Dotson. So I feel like his price is falling and he's getting cheaper. And that is a stud wide receiver you can acquire.
Aidan?
Yeah, I've got two as well, real quick before I move on. I got J.K. Dobbins, who everyone's already all over. In terms of what he's done when healthy, the dude's a 6 yard per carry guy in, again, very small sample size so far. Finished the year going over 90 yards in the final 3 out of his 4 games. I think that offense in general, too, should help him a ton. And he's going around the likes of guys like Madison, Javonte Williams, Damian Pierce is there too, which I would put closer between the two of them. But I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be an awesome asset going forward. Still extremely young as well. And then also Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley, he's already, kind of climbing back up boards, across all formats, but still feels too low for my likings given what he's already accomplished in his career and the offense and quarterback that he's getting plugged into. So those are two guys that are still extremely young, very favorable offensive situations that I would definitely be targeting if I don't already have them on my dynasty squads.
I love that you went with Jared Goff, which is like the missionary position of acquiring a dynasty asset. And then you were just like, fuck it. I'm going wild with J.K. Dobbins and Calvin Ridley. I'm just taking the riskiest way to go about it. I respect that. Aidan.
Get your man that can do both. Yeah. That was nice. Shaun, you got any more buys for us?
No buys. I just
we've got to sell at some point.
I've got to sell. I've got 2 sells. I'm gonna be a little bit more negative here on the podcast, but we're transitioning here to guys that we're trying to get off of, guys that I would be selling. I'm curious to know, Keegan, because you're the biggest hater out of the 3 of us. Wouldn't you say Keegan's the biggest hater out of us 3? It's a skill.
I do enjoy hating some things today. As the famous NBA athlete Kevin Durant said today, hate drives me. Too much love will kill you. But I would sell Deebo Samuel right now.
There it is. I freaking knew it.
So for the listeners, Aidan and I were talking before because we didn't want to tell anybody what we wanted it to be a surprise who our sells are. And he was like, I have a pretty crazy sell today. And I was like, you know what? I do too. I feel like people are going to call this out and not like this. He's like, wait, we might have the same guy. And here we are arriving on it. Deebo Samuel. I'll give you my elevator pitch, then I'll let Aidan get his. Yeah. But 27 years old. He is no longer a hybrid wide receiver running back. I think that one season was very fun, and it was awesome to see him go off in fantasy, but I don't know if he ever does that again, especially after all the hoopla he made about getting paid like he was a 2-position player. And then now they have a healthy CMC on their roster. They also have Elijah Mitchell. And I think their plan is to always have a more balanced attack and not focus on Deebo. So I think those days of double position point production are basically over. Also, pretty even target volume between Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle, CMC. Like those 4, they're all about like 20%-ish, and then Kittle's a little lower than that as far as volume percentages spread amongst them. So it's very even when they're all healthy. And he's a really good player too. This is one of the players I think you can sell and get not a haul for, but definitely a lot of players that you can kind of get from playing with or trading Deebo. I mean, some 1-for-1s, you could immediately get younger at the position. I mean, all the second-year guys outside of like Wilson and Olave, I think are buyable by selling off Deebo. So you can get younger at the position. There's also some kind of running backs that are changing in that, and you could get a pretty good first-round pick in 2024 too. Now, if Deebo Samuel's are wide receiver 1 and the next guy is like Isaiah Hodgins, don't trade Deebo Samuel, obviously. But if you've got a good roster and you want to get younger and you want to cut some weight, I think this is the perfect guy to cut weight on.
Keegan, you are speaking my language, dude. There's a lot of points to be made. I just want to add on like a couple things to Deebo Samuel, as I think our thought process is very similar here. When you look at it, like it kind of feels like 2021 was an anomaly in terms of what are we going to expect Deebo Samuel from a fantasy production standpoint. So his last 4 seasons in terms of PPR points per game is 12.6, 11.5, 21.2, which was awesome. We were all in on that. It's a pretty big regression last year to 13. So I think CMC is probably like the biggest reason why I'm out on him. Is a lot of the things that Deebo did was because they didn't have this kind of guy that could move all over the place and do some of these crazy things, whereas CMC can do many of those kind of wildcat, just more like gadget things. And Ayuk as well. Like Ayuk is what feels like he's going to absolutely explode this year. And that doesn't feel like to your point, with that type of offense, that we're going to keep two bona fide ones. So Ayuk is definitely a more traditional wide receiver in today's NFL. Deebo's aging, kind of only had that one stroke of real brilliance in terms of a full fantasy year production, and you can probably still get a first round pick for him. So I'm also selling.
That's the thing too, Aidan, that the anomaly part of this, like it really was just one crazy year for him where he exploded in fantasy football. And I think you're still close enough to that timeline where there's Deebo Samuel, sorry, I was thinking of Devonta Smith, Deebo Samuel believers out there, like hardcore Deebo believers that love him and are obsessed with him in fantasy. And you could get a significant return and move off of Deebo basically, because there's still that hope. But I think that was a one-off.
Shaun, now that we've dragged your wide receiver one through the mud for the last, 3-4 minutes, are you buying or selling Deebo Samuel?
Okay, by the way, you guys keep throwing out 2021 as an anomaly. Yes, it was an anomaly because it was the greatest season I have ever seen a 49er have. Ever. It was the most impressive thing I have ever seen. He put the entire team on his back and said,
it was awesome.
We are a play away from the Super Bowl because of Deebo Samuel. It was spectacular. Now, here's my comment here. When all four of those players shared the field last year, Samuel, Ayuk, CMC, and Kittle, who led the team in target percentage?
With Samuel.
Yes, Deebo did. Barely. Him and Ayuk roughly split. Who was the one that was really dragged through the mud when all four of those guys shared the field? Who had the worst target percentage?
It's Kittle.
I mean, Kittle for sure.
Kittle was
1,000%.
awful. Now, when all four of these guys shared the field with Brock Purdy as quarterback, right? Because Brock Purdy's probably going to be the starter. Against small sample, they didn't play a ton of games together. But when Brock Purdy was a quarterback, who do you think led, and what do you think that distribution looked like?
I think it was Kittle that led.
No, Samuel 30% target share, CMC 23% target share, Ayuk 19% target share, George Kittle 13% target share. George Kittle got carried last year because he caught like 7 touchdowns from Brock Purdy at the end of the season. So here's the difference on why Deebo Samuel does really well is because whenever they play zone, they force feed Deebo Samuel. He has a 29% target share against zone, Ayuk at 21%. When they play man, Ayuk goes up to 27% target share, Deebo Samuel 23% target share. This is all from Dwayne McFarland, by the way. Dwayne Fantasy Life does a great job. Give him a follow if you haven't yet. What this tells me is that, yes, Deebo Samuel's 2021 was an anomaly, but he still has really strong underlying metrics, and it's that Kittle was the one that benefited the most from the Deebo injury. So I think Kittle is honestly, unfortunately, who is one of my favorite 49ers, is more of a sell at this point than Deebo Samuel, but because he plays a premium position and he can go off for a 35 bomb at any time, you want Kittle, right? Because he just adds such an edge when he does go off. So I think that Ayuk ascending is the best counterpoint for this, and I think Samuel could be off the 49ers next season, and I think Deebo could be a force anywhere, but yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel are a great pairing. So I don't know what Deebo Samuel could look like on another team as the true wide receiver one. A team that really wants him is the Patriots, I guess. So that's an example of a team Deebo could land on. But I agree, Deebo Samuel is being rated as like a high-end wide receiver 2, when in actuality he's probably a high-end wide receiver 3 with upside. But I don't know. I can't sell my guy. I can't sell him. But I get it. People have been down on Deebo. I think mine's a little bit more of an obvious sell candidate because I have 2. Should I go for the hot take or should I go for...
Go scorching hot. Take it right out of the oven with no mitts on, Shaun.
It's time that you go sell Mike Williams, big dog, big Mike, right this second. Get him off your team. Sell him right now. He has major injury concerns. He's now injured his back on 3+ occasions in his career, including a small fracture in January of 2023. The Chargers can release him next season and save $20 million against the cap. They would incur a $12 million dead cap hit versus a $24 million cap hit if they release Mike Williams over Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen restructured his contract. Mike Williams did not. They drafted Quentin Johnston, who offers a lot of the downfield speed element that Mike Williams does, along with a yak ability that Big Mike just doesn't have. Now, Mike Williams has been highly efficient since he's came into the league. He's posted 4 out of 6 seasons with a 1.7 plus yards per route run. So he's been highly efficient when he plays, but he struggled to earn targets when he was on the field last year. Here are some of the wide receiver 2s on other teams who had a higher target share than Mike Williams in 2022. Allen Lazard, Cortland Sutton, Rondell Moore, and Zay Jones. Now they're adding first-rounder Quentin Johnston into the mix. Mike Williams is a great player who's benefited greatly from an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert over the past 3 years, but I would sell him now while he's a Charger, because I don't know what it's going to look like when he goes to his next team and he doesn't have 6'5" Drew Brees throwing him absolute missiles 50 yards down the field. So I'd get off Mike Williams while you still can, because I think Quentin Johnston's taking his job.
You know what? I'll say it. It's not that scorching hot. It's really
not that.
I don't think so either.
Really?
It's not that bad.
With him. It's like
I don't even need the health thing. It's just like they did draft Mike Williams 2.0 basically, right? Like that's what QJ is. And like I like Mike, but if Mike doesn't play, then I definitely don't like Mike. That's my biggest issue with him. He's a redraft nightmare, honestly, because you draft him to be almost your upper echelon wide receiver, and you sometimes don't get a full season out of him, and it's like
never.
And when he is questionable or like doubtful, and then he does play, you're like, okay, I have to start him because it's Mike Williams. He plays with Justin Herbert, and then he doesn't play a single snap because he aggravated it in warmups. Like that is a consistent thing that always happens. Like I would sell just on the premise of he is such a frustrating fantasy player to own in different league formats. I don't know what his true value is to like our league or other dynasty leagues, but I feel like the price might be okay to get him, especially because we're expecting a healthy Mike Williams, we're expecting healthy Herbert, no broken ribs. Their offensive line is back this year. So I agree it's a good time to sell.
I thought you guys liked
Mike
Williams.
Mike Williams is like a box of chocolates, dude.
I do like Mike Williams, the football player, but I don't like them, the fantasy player.
Wow. I thought I was speaking to some big Mike stands here. Wow.
No.
Real life football, I like him. Fantasy football, I think I've been burned by him too much. He's one of those players like do not touch for me anymore, because I think last year I did it again and it was frustrating. It's really, really frustrating.
I'd say the only format that I would really be like trying to get Mike Williams this year would be best ball, because when he goes for those 30, 40 burgers, it's pretty awesome, and that's exactly where you want him. But like, am I going to get more than 8 games out of Mike Williams? I don't know. He's still got back issues. QJ looks awesome already. Like, no, I don't think I'm a Mike Williams fan. I'm definitely selling him for a late first, somewhere in the second if possible.
Dynasty is completely different too, right? Because we're talking about like what this future looks like for him. But yeah, best ball, I'm all over someone like Mike Williams. And if you're not already, make sure you're going to Underdog Fantasy, signing up using promo code RTM to go draft you some Mike Williams in best ball, baby.
Link
don't
in the
forget
bio.
to do that. But Shaun,
code RTM.
I don't think it's that hot of a take, actually. I think that's actually a good candidate to sell. I think there's value there. You could sell him and go get the draft spot that could get you Quentin Johnston. You could probably do exactly that if you wanted to.
I'd say you're probably giving him like an early second if I had to guess. I don't think I wouldn't acquire him for a late first. I'd be shocked if I could unload him for a late first. I'm thinking an early second is probably closer to his value. But even there's still guys that I would love to replace him with in the start of the second round.
This guy was almost Higgins. Like, he was almost my guy I was going to do, but
I would have
the potential
okay with that.
The potential of him, if he's like the wide receiver 1 on like the Giants next, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't go down that road because he may explode.
He's on a do not touch list for me. I would not be selling.
He burned me so hard with his sitting out the pregame warmups. It's not T's fault. It's Zach's fault. We've gone over this, Keegan. It's fine. I'm talking about it. In therapy. It was Zach's fault. It wasn't your fault, T. But it's never the player's fault. It's always the coach's fault. Remember that, listeners. But I couldn't get there with T. Higgins. Who are you guys selling though? I'm curious. Is it hotter than Mike Williams? I thought I had some Mike Williams.
I have one other than Deebo. That's not. I wouldn't call it hot. I don't know if it was called hot, but I'd be selling Tony Pollard if I was an owner right now. I think that's hot.
That's hot. That's hot.
That's hot.
That's hot.
All right, so
that's a good one.
Whoa.
The way I see it is this is a running back who has been a backup. There's not a lot of, or there's still a ton of tread on his tires. I always fuck that saying up for some reason. I gotta stop using it. But I'll just move off that saying for our listeners because I'm sure they're always like, God, he butchered it again. But
Like
26,
did it again.
he's been sharing touches with Zeke. He finally gets an opportunity to be the full RB1 that we've seen hopes and glimpses of. But at the end of the day, also like Zeke was still something in the coach's eyes to keep Pollard off the field in some capacity, right? So like there is maybe something to say for that there. I think Pollard's a great player, but his value is probably the highest it will ever be right now. And this is a player you could cash in on and get a little younger at the position. You could also get some intriguing wide receivers that are valued the same around him, like Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Addison. You could probably get Najee in a Tony Pollard trade. He's also playing on a franchise tag right now. There's no commitment after Zeke is left to Tony Pollard by the Cowboys, like for the foreseeable future as of right now. Like he's got this year, and I think he's going to be a great like player this year, a fantasy, like a best ball, a redraft guy I really, really like. But in Dynasty, why not sell while he's hot? And I'm not usually of the opinion of like sell your good players. Like don't sell your elite players, and especially running backs. It's thin. But this is a player I would be comfortable for the right price selling. I'm not going to go out of my way to sell Tony Pollard. I just think right now his value is higher than it might ever be.
I think you're selling him a year early because he could go absolutely nuclear this year, and then you trade him. Like Jerry Jones like gives him money because it's Jerry Jones, and he gets like a 3-year deal, and then you flip Tony Pollard after his mega season because I think he's gonna go off this year. So I think I get it. Like I get this idea of like I'm gonna get off of him while I still can when the value is really high. I don't disagree with that. I think that's a good move in theory if you can like pick up like the pick that becomes Jahmyr Gibbs and you're basically turning Tony Pollard into Jahmyr Gibbs. I love that scenario, but like you're selling him right before he actually is at his peak value. I guess that's
if anything happens to. There's always the other side of it. You could say maybe you're selling too early, but it's like when is the right time to sell a dynasty player? That could be like a whole other episode, like because there's things happen all the time, especially at the running back position. Injuries happen. I mean, you got injured to end the last year, right? So it's like, do you want to get out now before the season starts, or do you want to hold on to him, hope for a major season, and then try and sell him again? But like I said, I wouldn't go out of my way to sell. I just think it's an option. There is something there to be looked at.
This feels like the Family Guy scene where it's like, do you want the boat or do you want the mystery box? We've got Tony Pollard here, who just came off an RB8 finish.
It is a little bit of that.
Of Ezekiel Elliott, and you're like, I want to flip this for what could be Tony Pollard. Like Pollard,
it's galaxy brain for sure.
Of what could be like a top 5 PPR running back this year. And I think to Shaun's point, I think you might be 1 year too early, but like, I get it, get out ahead of it if that's your strategy in Dynasty, depending on what your running back room looks like. As a Pollard Dynasty owner, like there isn't a price tag on
not
Pollard.
selling.
Like, he's not even on the market. Like I would block your number if you texted me to buy him. He's the boat. I'm taking the boat. You can keep your mystery box. Tony Pollard is going to be a top 5 running back this year in PVR formats, and I will be the beneficiary.
Fair. And then my only other one is real quickly Alexander Mattison.
There it is.
Let's go.
There it is.
This is going to piss people off.
Yeah.
This is going to piss people off.
No, that one's an easy sell for me. His value will absolutely never be higher than it is now as he works into this role. He's not even going to be 100% like every down back either. He's going to lose touches out to Ty Chandler. There might be some Dwayne McBride action. Like he's not going to maintain the bulk work of that offense. So I see this as like we're getting the new Dalvin Cook, like by getting a backup. Well, okay, then sell him like he's Dalvin Cook right now and get something back for Alexander Mattison. I feel like that is a no-brainer sell right now.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think his value is going to be higher. And yeah, it's like I keep going back to the point that like, in the case of like Tony Pollard was splitting the field with Ezekiel Elliott because the Cowboys saw him as this, very skilled player, whereas like Madison was never like splitting touches with Dalvin Cook. If they really valued him and saw him as this, alpha running back, he would have been seeing the field, and that was not happening. And that's an issue for me. Like, they can talk him up all they want in the offseason, but it's like, this guy's been riding the pine aside from when, Dalvin Cook separates his shoulder for 3 weeks every season, busts out for 2 weeks, then back to the pine. It's like, I'm not doing it. I'm for sure selling that too, getting back whatever pick I can.
Now, why wouldn't he split touches with Dalvin Cook? Now, why wouldn't he?
No, it makes no sense.
Aidan, I need you to check Sleeper real quick. I just sent you a Tony Pollard trade request that I think maybe.
Yeah, we're looking for
we're
looking for a new commissioner.
All I've got is a quarterback and a running back in there. So that's all you need to know about that one. Keegan, at Madison's your last one. Mine, I offered him John Wolford and Devin Singletary. That's one you take, and you take that to the house.
I was gonna say before you guys go through with this trade and we wrap the episode up, like, I think Aidan had one more, and then Shaun, you have any more sells too?
Aidan,
I'll do a quick one. I think, like, I'm kind of just getting on the bandwagon of, like, selling before, like, you lose all value, and it's Miles Sanders for me. I think, like, the media has pumped Miles Sanders. I'm not buying into this, that Miles Sanders is going to be this reliable 3-down back. He's going to return to his rookie season receiving form. I don't see that. It's kind of like the Eagles, aside from last year, I never trusted him to be this bell cow running back. I'm not doing this, and I think the Panthers are going to be bad, which means lots of passing, bad game scripts for him. I'm not doing it. Like, guys in that range, I'd rather have, like, Swift, Sharp, Henry, if you're on the cusp of really winning. Like, there's other dynasty assets that I'm absolutely taking over Miles Sanders in this range. Like, I'm not buying the spike here on Miles Sanders this year.
I kind of like Miles Sanders as a cheap buy, especially if you're on a contending team.
I don't think he's going to be cheap though. Like, you're copping up probably an early second, mid second for Miles Sanders. He's not going to be like, this bargain bin guy or just tossing a 3rd round pick in John Wolford. Like, this isn't like this is going to cost you a little bit. And I'm not doing, like, I'd rather have my 2nd round pick this year for a guy like Shaun Johnson or Kendre Miller in the 2nd round, a running back, which, could potentially carve out a much, prominent role. I don't know. I think this one I'm probably in the minority here, but I'm not doing it with Miles Sanders. I've been burned in fantasy by him, and I just don't see the world where he becomes, this alpha running back in an awful Panthers offense this year.
Wow, I love that. That was one of the spiciest ones. By the way, Aidan wearing his Bears hat has no ulterior motive for thinking that the Panthers are going to be bad this year. The guy with the Bears hat on does not. He has no ulterior motive. I think let's wrap this up with my final sell, and probably a running back who might have a top 10 offensive role in all of the NFL. He plays in high octave offense. He's a great receiver, and he gets a shit ton of volume. But I think it's time to get off of Joe Mixon as fast as humanly possible, purely because of the fact that his value has nothing to do with the fact that he's good. It has everything to do with the fact that he's in a high-powered offense and that volume is king in fantasy. He was not good as a rusher in 2022. He finished 49th in yards per attempt, 53rd in yards per contact per attempt, and 31st in missed tackles forced. He scored 55% of his touchdowns and 23% of his total 2022 fantasy points in 1 week. Again, he was pretty damn solid as a pass catcher, 1.47 yards per route run, and his volume was truly elite, 320 opportunities in like 15 games. But at the age of 28, he's basically turned into an older version of Rachaad White in a better offense. He's currently RB29 on Keep Trade Cut. And reports from Bengals beat writers is if he doesn't take a pay cut on his $12.8 million that he's owed as soon as this season, he may get cut. Like, he may be gone. You're at least getting 1 more year of Mixon on this team with limited backups. But I just get off of him unless you're a contending team trying to win this year. He's going to be the Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook of next offseason. I'm out.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think it really matters. Like, where is your dynasty team? If you're in that top 3-4 teams right now and you're contending with Joe Mixon, I'm keeping him because this is probably a guy that I want for 1 or 2 more years. Like redraft, I'm still in on Joe Mixon as well. If you're somewhere in the middle or towards the bottom of your league, and it's definitely time you're to Joe Mixon. By the time you're ready to contend, Joe Mixon may not have a job in the NFL anymore. I think it definitely, my buy or sell meter depends on where your dynasty team sits in terms of ready to contend.
I agree, fellas. Well, that's it. Those are our buys and sells. We're buying Danny Dimes, Jared Goff. We're buying Marquise Hollywood Brown. Who else are we scooping up? Calvin Ridley, J.K. Dobbins from Aidan, Keegan. Who am I forgetting that you're buying?
Traylon Burks. I'd be buying that as well.
Definitely buying.
And you had a third guy, right?
Terry McLaurin was my other guy.
Yes, McScorin. We are selling Mike Williams, Joe Mixon. We are unfortunately selling Deebo Samuel. We are selling Alexander Madison, Chase Claypool. Can't forget him. Cole Kmet.
He's already sold. Claypool's already sold, man. He's on the waiver wire, sadly. And I'll scoop him up.
Thank you, everybody, for supporting and tuning in. And until next time, fellas, you want to say anything to the mean team before we bounce?
Love you.
Love you guys. You know where to find us. Promo code RTM. You best ball bros with us.